Eden Koz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. P.S. Just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a psychological empath, meditation master, dimensional healer, all the things to help you within this ascension. To learn more about me, visit me at edenjustbe.com. And let's get this party started. Y'all know I do that. Eden, Just Be, spiritual boom. In association now with the Grassroots Radio Network, my only recurring guests, beautiful, beautiful souls, interstellar communicators. Welcome back. Round of applause for those listening, watching, Pia and Cullen. Hey, you two.
Hi, Eden. Delighted to be back with you again.
We always enjoy these conversations. They are so absolutely organic and deep and wonderful.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead. I feel now, because I usually talk a little bit, then read bios. I'm going to read bio first. There are a couple things I want to share after that. And I really thought about a lot of what we would talk about today. So it's organic, yet there are some ideas that I have in mind and whatever you guys want to share as well. Okay, so husband and wife, both PhDs, Pia, Orleane, and Cullen Baird Smith. As I stated, interstellar communicators, writers, visionaries, intuitives, Pia being a former psychologist and Cullen being trained in anthropology and archaeology, among, really shortening this, among 100 other things. Together, and it has to be both of them, they bring wisdom from the stars from a group of Pleiadian light beings known as Laarkmaa. They have offered decades of beautiful work and commitment to Earth and humanity. So again, welcome. Again, every time you guys are on the show too, we get really deep in terms of what's going on in the Earth and expanding that. So thank you for bringing yourselves here to all of us today. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Okay, two notes that I want to share. Okay, one is personal, but I get very personal on the show. So I start my colonic adventure today. So please watch and listen to the recent show with Shannon Wallace, who is wonderful. She's a detox specialist. So I'm very excited with that. So I'm going 3 times, and 3 times is what she kind of recommended. So I will continue to share about that. Then this statement from last show with New Earth Child Pioneer, Sherry Divband. I love this because this has really helped. I oddly had this tennis elbow in both arms. I mean, it was horrible, if I can say that, because, in terms of opening, you don't realize how much your elbows and your affect so much of your movement, so much that you do. So for 2 weeks, it was both arms, and this has been 3 months in the process. So I work out every week, and I go into this class where people are using weights, and I've stopped using weights. I had this weird pain in my lower back. This statement within the past 3 days, I am starting to really feel some alleviation from that. So I'm going to read this to you guys because it is a powerful statement. And I'm curious with what you guys would think of this. All right. I do not consent to any 3D interference in all dimensions, time and space, aligning with my highest good. And so it is. So I state this statement multiple times a day, and I'm really in a meditative practice, I guess is the best way to say it. Have been working on my pain, and there is just darkness that comes out of it. Okay, and I consider myself a pretty enlightened being, always working on, being lighter, and I am just amazed at still some of the stuff that's inside of me. All right, what, Pia and Cullen, what would y'all say to that?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me is you're describing what many, many people are telling us worldwide about pain or immobility in the neck, the shoulders, the upper arms, and the forearms. So this is not new to us. I also experienced this kind of symptomology.
As do I.
And our take on this is that actually we think it's the body receiving so much radiation from different kinds of how would we say that?
Well, there's positive radiation coming in from the sun, bringing more light into our cells. And then there's the negative radiation coming in from being irradiated by 5G, which goes straight to the bones, the joints, and the muscles, causing pain and suffering. So there's two things going on simultaneously, and the body can't really heal the negative ones at the same time all this positive light's coming in because it's an overwhelm.
So I think basically we're being helped by positive radiation. It's helping us enliven our cells. It's helping us become clearer in our spiritual practices, or what we're doing to evolve and to really amp up our vibration and our spiritual work. However, as Pia just said, on the other end, we're also getting things man-made that are not so good. So it's a little bit challenging to decide, well, what is it? Is it this one? Is it that one? But yeah. I think the good, best understanding of this is, so what? We're going to get through it, and it's just a temporary experience.
Love that. And it does. Like, I've never woken up stiff before. And suddenly, like, and there was also, like, usually when I lay down and sleep, there's no pain. Like, if there's pain, like when I'm resting, all is good. Yet the stuff in my hips was conscious. It was happening while I was laying down. So that was another thing too, that it wasn't, I couldn't escape it. Let's call it that. Yet I also like the temporary, I say a lot, this will pass. So I love hearing that from you guys too, because I also know that my body is also expanding. And in terms of keeping up with that process, like, that's really tough on our dense bodies as well. So like you said, it's a combination of everything. Okay, I wanted to go back to this because I know we talked about this when I first had you guys on the show a while back, but now that I'm on grassroots, I want to go back into that. So, for example, I watched a video last night of a woman coming into the Rothschild's covenant for the first time, like reading that specifically, how the plan is, we're just going to kill everybody off. We're going to maim children. We're going to make you sick. And, it's just one of those things when you hear it for the first time, it's unbelievable. She was crying. And it reminded me of my process in terms of seeing the reality of the world, and just, moments of just, I cannot believe that this is really happening. I can't believe there's such a dark agenda out there. Yet, again, it's all okay. It's tough. Like you said, Cullen, we'll get through it. How did you guys, knowing that you've always been attached since you were younger to all that is and to more, how did it come to you that there was such a dark agenda that was happening in the world? So, Pia, why don't you start?
Well, Eden, I think we've always known it. I think we have, because we've been awake since birth and we've always seen that there's a larger reality. I think it was pretty easy for us to see that the agenda didn't match what we were being told, that there was something behind the scenes, so to speak, behind the curtain. We started actively writing about this before COVID started. There's articles that Cullen has written and that we have written together on our website about the agenda, about the lies, about technovirus is one of the favorite ones on there. They're all under our archive articles for years and years, but we have been aware. We've even pointed people to the Arthur Firstenberg book, Invisible Rainbow, because he talks about in detail exactly how the agenda has caused sickness in the human body by bringing in more and more increased levels of radio waves and EMFs. And he documents scientifically this connection. So his work is in alignment with our work of exposing they're not doing what they say they are. they're doing something else completely. So we've sort of known this, but we really, really saw it amp up around 2019 or 2020.
Yeah, I would say, answering your question about our childhoods, I think P and I have been observing things from a very, very early age where we cocked our heads when we were told certain things, realizing that that did not resonate with our hearts. That did not sound logical, acceptable, or remotely truthful. So I think we have been at I don't know, maybe a fever pitch since we were little kids, realizing that the things that are being tossed around as facts or truths, actually, we've been aware that we have to rethink what we're being told. We have to really watch out for things that many people simply accept as the truth, or as tradition, or as just what everybody believes is right.
Cullen and I were both big questioners. From the time we could, ask questions, both of us were going, well, that doesn't make sense. Tell me about this, and why is this happening? I learned really, really early on that when somebody wanted to shut me up because I was asking too many questions, they would say, oh, just trust me. I have your best interest at heart. And I learned if anybody looked at me and said, trust me, and they wouldn't answer my questions, it was a big red flag. So when the government starts coming out and medical doctors start saying, trust us, we know what's best for you, red flags all over the place for me.
Ding, 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 ding. I have to say, personally, I spent more time, and I've probably said this to you on our shows together, in as far back as elementary school, going all the way through junior high, high school, into my university years. I spent more time in the principal's office or in the headmaster's office because I used to raise my little hand and say, wait a minute, I don't believe what the teacher just told me. And I got in trouble constantly. My parents had to come in and say, look, this little guy is not a disruptor. He's not trying to make trouble in the classroom. He simply knows that there's an alternative to what you're talking about.
Okay, so supportive. So it sounds like your parents were both of y'all. Were both of y'all's parents supportive?
No. Cullen's were supportive. Mine were in the trust me and shut up category.
Wow.
No, we had a completely different experience with that. But the reason I brought this personal part up is I definitely have been speaking out since I was a tiny little kid. I mean, I don't want to waste a lot of our time with this personally, but when I was like 4 years old, I used to ask my parents questions that they could not answer. They were both really bright, really well-educated people, but I would say things like, well, why isn't food free? Why isn't electricity free? Why can't we use the telephone free? I'd ask all these questions and they'd say, look, son, that's just not the way things work on this planet. And I was absolutely confused about why life support things, from what I remembered from where I came from, were just taken care of. That was part of life. Everybody had everything they needed. And it was a shock to me here on planet Earth as a little person, realizing that they're not really taking care of me.
And it was a shock for me recognizing that people didn't have integrity or honesty. They didn't do what they said they were going to do. And they would just as soon make up a story as tell you the truth. And I think my parents tried to answer my questions, but to be perfectly honest, without ego, I was smarter than they were. So my questions reached far beyond what they could explain from their limited belief system. And they always reached the point of just telling me, oh, just trust me and be quiet, because they couldn't handle a level of going any further. I think a lot of people have that experience now because so many of us working with the light are more awake and more aware than our environment, whether that's our family, our school, whatever it is. We're more awake and aware, smarter than, broader thinking, more open-hearted. So others get frustrated with us.
Okay. And I love staying on this topic for just a second. Did y'all have siblings?
I had no siblings. I was an only child.
Okay, me too. What about you, Colin?
There were 4 of us in my family. So I had 2 sisters and a brother.
Okay.
And I can tell you, I don't know where you're going with this, but I will interject. I was definitely the black sheep.
I was going to ask. I was going to ask if any of your siblings were like you.
Not at all. They were not curious. They were not interested in nature. They were not imaginative. No, I was in a completely different arena. I mean, I could have said, who are these people? I mean, are we really related? It was that obvious.
Wow. And Pia, let me ask you, because it's really interesting that you and I are only children and we're both from the South. So I thought that was so interesting when we started to meet. Were you brought up in an organized religious home, or how did that start?
Twice a week. Well, 3 times a week. Sunday morning, church and Sunday school. Sunday night, youth fellowship. Wednesday night, something or other. I don't even remember what. Yes. And I have to interject something kind of funny. My childhood minister in my Presbyterian church became so frustrated by my questions that he left.
I'm gonna laugh again for this for just a second. I can just imagine this. All right, please go ahead.
He actually left the ministry and said, if I can't answer this child's questions, how can I be a minister? And he left the ministry.
You have got to be kidding.
Oh, I'm very, very serious. So it was, I knew that my questions were making a difference. I knew that they were shaking things up, but I wasn't finding any answers anywhere. And then after he left, I just had a succession of ministers that were forced on our church that were right in the traditional dogma of what they were supposed to teach and do. And I tried to get my letter. In the Presbyterian church, you have a letter that's given into the church. Once you are baptized, they give you a letter of membership. I tried to withdraw my letter from the church when I was 21, maybe 20. I can't remember. Anyway, I was told, no, you can't have this letter. You gave it to the church. So I had a friend in the church who said, I'll get the letter transferred to my church. He was a minister. He said, I'll get it transferred to my church, and then I'll give it to you. I had to go around workarounds to withdraw from the church, which I wanted to do as soon as I was old enough to be away from it.
This is really interesting to me, and I don't know if this works out in what we're talking about, but my experience of growing up was totally different than Pia's. My parents were intellectual, philosophical, maybe I could even say spiritually inclined.
Okay, can I ask, where'd you grow up?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, I grew up in the breadbasket of spirituality and absolute craziness. I grew up in LA County, California.
Compared to Deep South Georgia. Ooh, okay,
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely. So our experience was night and day. My parents weren't religious at all. I mean, we just were not religious. It was dinner table conversation was about, well, how do you feel about nature? How do you feel about what's going on in the world? How do you feel about this or that? I mean, my experience was very open and very thought-provoking. So P and I really grew up in a really different way. But the interesting thing is our personal experiences, even though one of us was a West Coaster and one was an East Coaster, we developed at the same rate. After we got together and got to know each other and became a couple, we talked about what our childhoods were like. We understood things at 10 years old, we both went through the same thing. At 15, we both went through the same thing. At 20, we both went through the same thing. So even though our family experience was absolutely diametric, our spiritual lives, our spiritual understanding developed exactly at the same rate.
Oh, so back to you, Pia. What questions would you ask in church that one preacher had to go away from it? Like what would you ask?
Well, I'll give you the one that was the last straw for him. I asked him who made God, and he just couldn't. He said, time made God. And I looked at him and said, time doesn't exist. And he didn't know what to do with that. And that was one that just pushed it over the edge. So that was that story. Eden, I have just finished a book about taking the whole Christian set of old paradigm, traditional stuff we have been taught, and turning it on its ear and giving it a completely different interstellar perspective of what that really was, to be taught how to be conscious and loving human beings. Cullen's just edited it for 11 times, and it's in publication now. It'll be out in November. But it's time that people start reevaluating everything that we've been taught or told or believe, automatically just assume it's true because we've been raised in it. We have to start thinking critically for ourselves and going, isn't there another way to view this? Isn't there a broader perspective? How else can we be awake, loving, and spiritual other than following a set of rules or dogma that have been imposed on us by an outside organization? That's just not right.
So how was it for you guys knowing right now that children coming into the world and younger people, even though they've been heavily indoctrinated, I've talked before, the number of 20-year-olds that are coming to see me suddenly blasting off, which is incredible. And they're all at different levels of why they're coming, but something's not sitting with them. So I use this opportunity to go into that and then plant some little bigger seeds. Yet I feel at the time when you guys came into the world with these questions, Cullen, you talking about being the black sheep in your family, that y'all were some of the only ones raising these questions, these pivotal questions. Did you feel isolated? Did you feel alone? What was it like growing up with those questions and those feelings and not having very many people around you to go, yes, and what was that like?
Well, I've got a really simple answer to that. Nature. Nature was my savior. I grew up on the ocean. I spent a tremendous amount of time either in, on, or below the water. And my parents were so good at taking their family to natural places. They took us to one of my favorite places on earth is Sequoia National Park, which is in central, some people say Northern California. It's sort of between central, northern, Southern California. It is the home of the giant sequoia trees. They are the largest living beings on earth. They're up to 5,000 years old. They are so wise. And I connected with the mountains, the trees, the water, and believe me, nature saved my life.
Oh my God. And knowing that you also went into anthropology and archaeology, kind of this more natural, more earth-based science. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I wanted to know more about why things were the way they were. And I figured out early on that if I studied humanity, if I studied our species, where we came from, who are we, that would help me understand the bigger picture. So yes, you're right. Absolutely.
Okay. Pia, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that I didn't have as broad a spectrum of as many places to visit nature as Cullen did when he was growing up with his parents taking him out into the wilds. But nature was also my savior. I spent a tremendous amount of time climbing trees and just being in the trees all day long. or taking a favorite book. I was always reading because I found like-minded, like-hearted people in literature. And I'd take a favorite book up into the trees, and I'd be in nature, disconnected from everything down below, reading a book where I found a friend. And I
What
love
do you
to play.
remember? What books did you gravitate towards?
I read everything and anything I could get my hands on, but I specifically gravitated towards things that made my heart feel open. And I was always reading a grade or two ahead of what I was supposed to be reading. So I was always reaching for more, reaching a little bit broader, reaching a little bit deeper.
Was there anyone in your younger years that was like a mentor or saw the depth that was inside of you that they could help you craft it? Or did you have to do this by yourself for a very long time?
I would say probably I did it on my own. I had people around me that could see my joy and my spirit,
Mhm.
and grown-ups that were older than my parents, who were kind of like grandparents, but they weren't grandparents. But in my neighborhood, there were people who could see my joyful laughter, my ability to connect. And I felt encouraged and supported in that way. But I don't feel like I had anybody mentoring me at all, ever. I didn't find a mentor until I was in my 50s, and I found a mentor that I felt like, wow, this person knows something about the body that I can take into my psychology practice and help my clients with. And she was an amazing mentor. Her name was Emily Conrad. She's no longer on the planet, but she founded something called continuum movement therapy, which is about understanding that the body is made of water, that we are wave motion, and that we should not be stuck and inflexible, but we should be moving at all times, slowly, gently, subtly, moving from one position to the other, because we're ever-changing beings. That was my first mentor.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Eden. I also read from a very early age, and I was reading way beyond my scholastic ability also. And a lot of my family had a huge library. We had thousands of books, and I was able to read the classics. When I was in elementary school, I was reading Ralph Waldo Emerson. I was reading Thoreau. I was reading all these highly spiritual, thoughtful people. And I would say I was mentored sort of remotely by that. But to be perfectly honest, I think my best mentors were animals. I learned so much from animals, dogs, cats, even wild animals that I was able to deal with. But probably one of the most important animals that I spent time with was dolphins. I was a surfer, and I was out in the water on a surfboard every day. And there were dolphins in the bay that I grew up in, and they were frolicking. They were jumping over the surfboards. They were playing all around me. And
No
I
way.
think I got a sense about joy and freedom from that experience. So I think animals were great teachers. And I think Pia could also agree with that for her.
Absolutely, absolutely connected with the animal kingdom. There was not an animal on earth that I didn't love or try to rescue. And I had intuitive experiences about animals when I was growing up. When I was 13, we had cows on our property. And I called my mother to pick me up from school one day and said, come get me. I have to come home right now. And she came and got me. And I said, there's a cow in trouble, having trouble giving birth to a calf. You have to go down there and find her. And my mother listened to me, and she got help. And we went down, and the cow had half given birth to a calf in a stream, and it was drowning. And
Gosh.
my calling her and saying, come get me, I have to help with this, was a pattern in my life. I was able to see things. I was able to do things to make a difference early on. Animals were always important to me, and I was deeply connected to all of them.
So how did your mother, it sounds like she listened to you and responded. Was that pretty much the case whenever you'd have these intuitive hits? Were they still responsive to that?
She was always responsive to that. Not my father, but my mother always was responsive to my intuition. She didn't listen to anything much I had to say philosophically or intellectually. But if I had an intuition, something perked up in her and she knew it was going to be right.
Okay. Well, and that definitely helps when it is right. So she knows, oh, my little Pia's got something going on, so I better pay attention to that. So isolating in a sense, but yet nature provided that hug and that support. And Cullen, also knowing that dolphins and whales are here to help hold the vibration for the planet to help us get through that. And the fact that you said they would literally jump over your surfboard, that's crazy.
It was amazing. That experience caused me to seek out dolphins all the rest of my life. I have swum with dolphins all over the world. Pia and I have had experiences together with dolphins, and they are amazing beings. I've gotten in trouble many times saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Well, please do. This is the place.
I think dolphins are smarter than humans.
Oh, well, yes, me too. Well, and to hold the planetary vibration, I mean, you've got to be so super intelligent. I mean, yeah. Why would you get in trouble for that statement?
Well, because a lot of people, whether from a scientific point of view or a religious view, believe that humans are the climax species, that we are the top of the heap, that we're the smartest, we're the most ingenious, we're the end all of evolution. And my God, humans, we have been in existence on this planet for approximately 3.2 million years as the modern human. Dolphins of whales have been here for 60 million years. I mean, 60 million years in their environment. Sea turtles are actually the granddaddies and the grandmothers of wisdom on this planet.
Oh.
They've been here longer than whales and dolphins, and we're young upstarts as a species. So scientists and religious leaders really have a hard time with that statement.
But Eden, it's time that we change the old paradigm. We need to move into new understandings of a new paradigm, because we're not going to be living in the old one very much longer. And that's one thing Cullen and I are deeply committed to, is changing how people think about what we're doing now and what's coming. We've got to change the paradigm. We've got to get people to start recognizing the intelligence of energy, the awareness of what your energy is and what the energies of others is, what the energy around you is, what the energy of your karma that you're working through is. Because really the name of the new paradigm is energy. It's all about energy.
We need to grow up.
Let me say, yeah, we need to grow up. I get a frog in my throat. Frog. Yes, we do need to grow up. Okay.
Well,
love that statement.
We don't learn, the human species, I don't think, learns very much from our mistakes. And we could be doing a much better job of evolving, of opening our hearts, being more generous. I mean, I could go on and on and on about this. I don't think we've done a very good job of shepherding this fantastic, beautiful, energetic planet that we live on. And I think it's high time that we make the changes that Pia just described. Mm-hmm. We need to move up our game and be way more aware and way more conscious of how we, the human species, affects all the other kingdoms, all the other species on this planet. I mean, we've just not done a good job.
I'm offering a workshop in November to help people understand their own energy, what their karmic patterns are they're working through, how to move beyond the shadows they carry, how Venus impacts their relationships, trying to help people get more involved with what their own energy is, to do exactly what Cullen just said, so they can start paying attention to how their energy impacts everything else and how others' energy impacts them. I'm really excited about doing this workshop because it's bringing a new level of awareness, because
Yes.
people are focused on time, not energy. I did one of these about 18 months ago, and it was very well received. So now I'm taking it to another level.
Okay.
And
Can we talk about that specifically? So when in November, what does it look like?
it's November 10th, 11th, and 12th, a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And in the United States, it's going to be in the morning. Depending on where you are, your time zone will be different. It's 8, 9, or 10 o'clock in the morning. In Europe, it's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, or 6 o'clock, depending on where you are in Europe. And it's going to be an hour and a half on each of those mornings so that people don't get overloaded and saturated. Just enough to dig deeply into it, have real conversations with each other, listen to what I have to share, and ask what questions you want to ask, and see how it relates to you personally so that you can then expand and grow from it. The information about it's on my website, piaorleane.com, and you can find it under, I think it's under services. It's also on the Laarkmaa website, laarkmaa.com, under services and workshops. So it's in both places, because this is based on the work the Pleiadian group we work with, Laarkmaa, gave Cullen and me almost 20 years ago. We've been working with this energetic system a long time. So this workshop is based on helping other people understand how they are energy.
I love that. Two questions, and one thing I want to interject. I somehow saw something about the energy of clothing. Okay, and I think very broad spectrum about everything. Yet I realize I have never considered what I'm wearing on my body, and the different energy of polyester and cotton and silk. It was just this moment that I was kind of mind blown. And then, of course, I sat there and go, what? Thought about this before. And things that we're putting, and I know right now, like the lotions and the perfumes and the toothpaste, that there's so much chemical and just, I'll use the word crap and some of that. Yet clothing, what would you guys say to that?
Well, you're right on about all the chemical stuff, but you left out a very important one, and that's the color of what you're wearing.
Oh, yes.
And I have noticed women more than men intuitively pick up the color energy of the day. For instance, in the Pleiadian Earth energy system, today is a day full of Western energy, which is aligned with the color blue. You have on the color blue.
No
and
way.
They do that automatically very often. They'll go to the closet and not know why they're picking it, but they'll pick a certain color, and you'll go into a arena and you'll find all these women with blue clothes on, because they've all picked up on the energy of the day.
Yeah, it's amazing. Natural fibers do many different things to our bodies. Natural fibers like cotton or wool or tencel, which is made out of trees, out of wood pulp, those three fabrics allow the body to breathe much more easily than synthetic fabrics. Synthetic fabrics cause a blockage of our largest, the skin on our body is really the largest organ of detoxing and bringing in good things that the body needs. And what you said a moment ago about all the poisonous lotions, all the perfumes, all of the things that people splash on themselves that are not really good for the human body, natural substances are what we were designed to be around. So wearing natural substances really, truly enhances our life experience. So go ahead.
There's another aspect about the energy of your clothing also. And this goes into people who like to borrow each other's clothes or go to a used clothing store and buy used clothes, which I have nothing against whatsoever. But if you're going to do that, you need to get energy sensitive, because you really don't want to find something that looks beautiful in the store and take it home and start feeling depressed and find out somehow the person that had that clothing was going through a divorce or had just lost a loved one or was a nasty person or whatever, and you're absorbing the energy that's residual in the clothing. Whereas you can find another piece of clothing in the store, and if you learn to be sensitive to this, you can feel, oh, this is really good energy. This must have belonged to a kind and loving person. So you have to be energy sensitive to what you're putting on your body in so many different ways.
And this isn't just about clothing.
Yeah.
This is about everything. When Pia and I go to a gem store and we want to look at crystals, we pick up each crystal and hold it closely to our body, and we simply ask, do you want to go home with me? Do you feel, we get that no on a regular basis. Yes, we want to come home with you. It's not just clothing, it's everything. I mean, it could even be furniture.
Well, I was just going to bring up antiques, because my grandparents were antique dealers, and I have a lot of antiques in my home. So yeah, and the energy that comes from all of those.
Antiques are a beautiful example of this, Eden. Yes. Pia and I did something we've never done. We ordered something online, an antique.
Beautiful piece.
Beautiful piece. We had it delivered, and immediately it made us feel ill. It made us feel uncomfortable. And we're both intuitive enough to understand what went on with that antique. And I won't describe it on air, but it was not a wholesome piece of furniture.
It didn't belong in our home, so
we abandoned it. We left it either in the home that we were in when we left. I can't remember the circumstance, but everything carries energy.
Okay, let me ask, was it something to sit on or a bed frame? Like it was
No, it was an antique Japanese chest. It was a beautiful, beautiful Tanzu chest. We had a lot of Japanese furniture, antiques at one time, and that went really well with some American or English antiques. The design lines were just perfect together. But we could not live with that piece. It was amazingly evident the minute it came off the truck.
My gosh. So y'all didn't feel it when you ordered it, yet when it came into your energy, that's when you were like, oh my gracious.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of like these people that try to make a heart-to-heart relationship through an email, and then the person shows up and they're not at all what they were expecting. Same kind of idea.
I'm amazed at how quickly time has already gone by. I have multiple other questions, but I'll save some of those. I would like to ask one other animal that you guys think is just that people may not know is such a blessed energy or intelligent energy. Okay, go ahead.
Bears.
That is so funny. I just saw a video about bears. Okay, let me hear y'all's perspective. Wow.
Well, we've been playing with bears since we were children, both of us, me in the Smoky Mountains in Georgia.
And me in the Sierras in California.
Yeah, we've been playing with bears all of our lives. And when we go to Sequoia National Park, we always spend time with the bears, and we have such a good relationship with them. If we see tourists who are waving sticks or throwing rocks, we pretend we're park rangers and escort them off the property, and take care of the bears. We just do that. And we've had bears actually come up to us, mother bears, sniff us out, deposit their cubs at our feet, and go off foraging because they know we'll keep their cubs safe.
Shut up. That's amazing.
We have had not dozens, but hundreds of bear encounters where people who watch us from a distance are frightened to death. They think we're going to be eaten alive. And we simply get quiet. We don't move. We don't speak. And bears know that, number one, we're not afraid of them. Number two, we're not going to hurt them. And we have, honestly, the most incredible encounters with bears.
One of the last ones we had most recently, we were at a favorite place, and I sat down on a log to watch this group of bear cubs, 3 cubs. And I was sitting on the log, and 2 of the cubs were interested in me, and they came up and started sniffing my boots. One of them climbed up close to me. The third one wasn't interested at all. Right behind the cubs, here came the mother. She climbed up, lumbered up on the log, and people behind us were afraid I was about to be eaten. And she came right up to me like this, nose right to my nose. I knew better than to look her in the eyes. You never look a wild animal in the eyes. It's disrespectful. I cast my eyes down and allowed her to sniff me, put my nose there. She sniffed me out thoroughly, got down and grunted something to the cubs and went off. And they then climbed up on the log where she had been and allowed me to touch them and play with them. This is everyday experience for Cullen.
Yeah,
bears are really, really important and special to us.
This is not a fantasy. This is a lifelong experience for us. And from a shamanic point of view, bears are really incredibly wise. They have some ability that their healing energy, their wisdom energy, their spiritual energy, and bears have been revered shamanically by all ancient tribes or groups of original peoples around the world. Wherever there were bears, there was an instant respect for the bear kingdom. And Pia and I I don't know how it happened. Maybe because we were children and we just felt a kindred spirit with them, but it's been a lifelong association for us.
We both started playing with bears when we were very, very young.
Thank you for sharing. All right, I guess it's time to get, and I love that there's so much still left to talk about, because, we'll be seeing you guys again in 6 weeks, and that'll lead into more. Ken, is it okay if we go ahead and have Laarkmaa y'all have given us a whole bunch of wisdom, so get wisdom, another set of wisdom. Is that good with you guys?
Sure.
I'm sure Laarkmaa would love to do that. So give us a minute.
Just be practice.
And then for those listening, y'all, do y'all mind going ahead and I'll tell folks listening what's going on?
We'll just listen to you and we'll be in tune. Go ahead.
Okay. So what Pia and Cullen do right now is they connect physically, hand to hand, because they have to be touching to bring Laarkmaa in. And then Pia is the voice. So I'm going to be quiet right now.
Hello, dear ones. We are Laarkmaa. Please give us your heart song, dear ones, so we may connect directly with you. That is your name and your voice.
Oh, Eden.
Eden. We wish to thank you personally for bringing in higher awareness and consciousness to all those who listen to your show. So we wanted to give you a personal message before we give a meditative message for everyone.
Thank you.
We trust an agreement for you.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much.
So for all of your listeners, we wish you to know this is a time of great chaos, but that is not a bad thing. Chaos is the energy out of which every new and better thing is ever born. For order keeps things in stuck patterns that are familiar and are perceived to be safe, but may not be as safe as you would like. Whereas chaos takes things and turns them all around, reorganizes them, and brings forth the birth of a new energy in a new form that may be higher in conscious awareness, more energetically aligned with what you need at the moment, and more positive for your world to change. So do not be afraid of the chaos that is happening on your planet. Do be aware, however, that there are energies who wish to disrupt your evolutionary process. There are many who would like to keep you stuck in a position of fear or in a position of not knowing what to believe and confusion, because they wish to have you believe a certain set of beliefs that adhere to the agenda that has been put out to achieve the enslavement or the limiting of the population of humanity. That is a real agenda. And those who are working with love and light and becoming more consciously aware are also becoming more aware that this agenda exists. Once you know something exists, it is easier for you to work with how to bring in a higher vibration, a higher frequency, where you are not even existing in the same plane of reality as what is existing around you. Not that you're going to jump ship here. We don't mean that at all. You are here to be of service. But what we do mean is that you have the ability, once you open your heart and see what is happening, to make higher and higher choices and higher frequencies, so that you move into a multidimensional awareness and begin to be able to energetically move more quickly to wherever you need to be, whenever you need to transcend a certain situation. This is what's going on for you now. The agendas that are out there are not for your well-being, your conscious evolution, your health, or your goodness. The agendas that are so prevalent now are set to confuse you with lies, confuse you with what is called fake news, confuse you with false prophets and fake spiritual values, confuse you with artificial health things that are not to your benefit, and block you from hearing about things that are for your benefit, either spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, or physically. That's the agenda that's going on. The way to work around this from the Pleiadian perspective is to always go into your heart. Your heart is directly connected with Source. You do not need to be affiliated with a specific religion in order to be connected to Source. You just need to listen to your heart. Tune out the fear that is in your mind. Let your heart guide you, and always make choices from the highest frequency that you can attain in any given moment. Doing that keeps you out of fear and in the space of love, and helps you be part of the birthing process of bringing forth the new humanity that you are here in service to help achieve. So the chaos that you experience is not darkness and negativity, although it appears that way to you now. It is the darkness of the agenda that infringes upon the chaotic birth process, where you are moving into a lighter and higher frequency state of being. In closing, we will say just this: you are beings of love. You are beings of light. You are in a high evolutionary process, bringing consciousness to your species for all those who wish to hear, all those who wish to see, and all those who wish to evolve. Do not concern yourself with those who have made another choice, for each human has the ability and the right to make their own choices. And if they choose to evolve at a slower pace, on a different planet, at a different time, that is their choice, which must be honored and recognized. Your choice to ascend through the evolutionary process of aligning with light and love keeps you on the path of ever-evolving service, higher and higher frequency, and deeper connection to each other and to us, your star brothers and sisters. Know that we are all gathered around your planet, and we send energy in to support you on your evolutionary journey every moment of your existence. We are here because we love you. We are here because we trust that your hearts can lead you to make the very best choices. And we trust that with all that is going on, you will move outside of the restrictions you feel now into a greater sense of freedom through the love that you are sharing and the light that you offer through being who you are, beings of love and light, making higher and higher choices. We love you. Good always.
Not to be trite, just like a little cheerleading, cheering us on, pumping us up. So beautiful. And I had one question and it was answered. My one question was going to be, if I was asked that one simple thing that we could all do to keep our vibration up during the Great Awakening. And it was basically just connect with your heart. That's the key.
And I suspect, Eden, we heard Laarkmaa ask you for your heart song.
Yes.
So they got that question out of your heart when you connect. That's why they connect with people. That's what they do with people in our individual sessions that we offer for people to ask questions and get guidance. So I'm sure
great.
It's not just a synchronicity. They took the question from your heart and made it public for everybody.
Well, there you go. And I didn't even have to verbally ask it out loud. Hey, and I have to bring this up. I was just listening to an audiobook the other day. They talked about Van Gogh being a Pleiadian starseed. I love hearing that, like something about that just made me open my eyes up more. And Cullen, you talking about poets and stuff that you used to read that were very, vibrationally on a high end scale as well. Like knowing there have been star seeds that have always been here, or people that have known more. It was comforting. It was very comforting. So I'm gonna have to look more at his work.
If you've ever stared at Van Gogh's painting Starry Nights, you have no doubt that he's from somewhere else.
Yeah,
yes.
It's interesting that you brought this up. In every epoch, in every age, there have always been humans that knew a little bit more than everyone else. And I mean, there's a laundry list of amazing beings. And where did they get their information? Where did they get their inspiration? I think they were connected to a bigger picture, a bigger realm, a bigger connection to a wiser truth. And I think the example you just gave is an excellent way of explaining that.
And maybe we'll talk about this the next time too, because it's really hard, or not hard, challenging to connect. And I know going to your heart, but to connect with who's real, who's not, who's the fake news, just disseminating and discerning all of that. So yeah, maybe we'll discuss that next time.
That's a great topic. That is a great topic.
We'd love to do that next time.
Yes.
Okay. And also knowing we're going to be meeting the next time near Halloween as well. So we're going to talk about what actually that means also. Is there anything y'all want to close us out with? This was really great.
I'd like to thank you for being a wonderful interviewer and bringing such great to the front.
Yep. And I would just want to add that there's so much talk of doom and gloom. There's so much talk about negativity. There is an equal amount or a larger amount of goodness and hope and trust that's also part of our collective experience. So I think what Laarkmaa just talked about is, of course, there's change, of course, there's chaos, but there's also a wonderful, wonderful aspect to what we're all going through. And I think if people can realize that, there won't be as much fear, there won't be as much upheaval. Just know that we're changing, and part of our job is to hang on and continue doing what we're doing.
I think that's perfect. All right, until next time. And Pia, your class or your seminar or whatever the best way to deem it, on November 10th, 11th, and 12th. I will definitely, I always have y'all's website listed. I think I'm going to be in Mexico when you have that class, because a part of me was like, I want to be there. So we'll figure that out. All right, everybody. Until next time. See you later. Y'all say goodbye, please.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye for now.
Yeah. So cool of you to be here. I went from being off most social media to being on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or True Social, and you might be watching this on YouTube, Rumble, or BitChute. Or you might be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm on over 19 directories at this point. So connect, comment, subscribe, like. Oh, and my intention is to have a new episode out Wednesday of each week. Oh, Lordy, more to come.